Welcome to Media Watch. I'm Jonathan Holmes. Last Friday morning, ABC Sydney's Deborah Cameron was chatting about the campaign so far to veteran Liberal strategist Graham Morris.
Why is it that we are being led towards our fears in this campaign instead of towards our dreams?
You should have a talk to your own colleagues, Deborah. The agenda, a lot of the agenda is set by the media.
Well, it's easy to blame the messenger, but there are some areas where the politicians are reacting to problems that the media have helped to turn from molehills into mountains. Like, for example, boat people. Why does a nation of immigrants get so upset over a few hundred or even a few thousand unauthorised boat arrivals? It seems it's a mixture of fear and resentment. The fear is partly aroused by headlines like this.
Invasion.
Up to 800 asylum seekers could arrive in Australian waters during the election campaign, with the Navy bracing itself for an influx of up to 12 illegal boats.
Up to 12 illegal boats. We'll be overrun, swamped, blitzed. When the media says up to, watch out. By page 6, up to 800 asylum seekers had become
an election influx of 8 to 12 illegal boats carrying between 300 and 800 passengers.
Or illegal Centrelink seekers, as 4BC's Michael Smith in Brisbane likes to call them. He's one of the many who fan resentment of asylum seekers however they arrive. They're all queue jumpers, of course, and as soon as they're accepted as refugees, they'll be jumping another queue.
Now, they go straight to the front of the queue for the very best in accommodation in this country at a time when Australians are homeless.
Smith had got hold of a report about homelessness. It showed that most Australian families who ask for emergency accommodation can't be immediately housed.
80% of couples with children are turned away. This is a shocking indictment on us.
Well, Smith's right. It is a shocking statistic. By contrast, he went on,
but asylum seeker, Johnny or Mohammed come lately, who fronts up on the boat front of the queue. The government's laid out the red carpet for asylum seekers.
Not only do they get VIP treatment in detention on Christmas Island and elsewhere, but
then when they graduate, they go straight to the front of the queue for government-funded housing. They get the highest priority there, 13,500 every year.
Now that is just arrant nonsense. For starters, where does that figure 13,500 come from? It's got nothing to do with boat people or asylum seekers. It's the total number of people granted refugee and humanitarian visas each year, the vast majority of whom have been waiting in the so-called queue for years. And when they get here, refugees get no special access to public housing. In fact, most end up in the private rental market. And they get no special Centrelink payments either. The only shred of truth in Smith's claim is that when refugees first arrive or are released from detention, the Commonwealth does
arrange and pay for short-term accommodation, generally for a period of 4 to 6 weeks. It is always in private accommodation, such as homes, apartments, motel rooms.
Well, Australian families looking for emergency housing would no doubt be grateful for 4 to 6 weeks free accommodation. But it's just inflammatory and untrue to say of asylum seekers and their families that
when they graduate from the accommodation that I've just spoken about, they go straight to the top of the queue for public housing.
Yet Smith said it over and over again. No wonder his listeners were infuriated.
I'm just so angry I could go and kick my door out. Mithy, I'm so angry. My heart's pounding as soon as I heard you say how many people in houses and everything. I'm ropeable and I'm a very quietly calm person.
What made Smithy's heart pound was when Media Watch asked him to justify his nonsense.
Why does Media Watch exist? Why do they spend our taxes with crap like that? Well, who do you care about, Media Watch? Australian people or Johnny come lately who arrives by boat? Where are your priorities? And our taxes are funding you.
Smithy, our job, a rather hopeless one I agree, is to try to shame people like you into telling your listeners something approaching the truth. You had a perfectly good point to make. If you'd asked why, when the Commonwealth can fund short-term accommodation for refugees, it and state governments can't fund emergency housing for Australian families in need, we wouldn't have had a word to say. But to claim that refugees
go straight to the front of the queue for government-funded housing. They get the highest priority there, 13,500 every year.
is simply to perpetuate a divisive myth.